All right, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast. I am Brian Hines from Pat's Pulpit, joined as always by 98.5 The Sports Hub's Alex Barth. And it was a busy day at one Patriot place today in the Patriots world. The Patriots are back on the practice fields for their first day of mandatory minicamp, but there were also a handful of roster moves. They released running back James Robinson and cornerback Tay Hayes, and they signed undrafted free agent Justice Tavai, who was with the team. He wasn't with us for OTAs, was he?
I think maybe one of them.
One day, so they brought him back in the fold, and they also have a workout with offensive lineman DJ Fluker reportedly on the radar. So some roster shuffle today. It brings the roster to 88 on our count. So what you got out of those moves from today?
So Robinson, I'm not that surprised. He was obviously the odd man out of the running backs when we were watching in practice the first few days. I know people got all worked up about that contract at the time, like 2 years, $4 million, whatever it was. There's 150,000 guaranteed. It's going to leave them with nearly no dead money. They might end up with no dead money if it ends up being in an injury settlement. Because remember, he's still sort of recovering from that torn Achilles. Tay Hayes, depth secondary player. That one doesn't surprise me much. Bringing back Justice Tavai, I don't see the spot for him. They're really deep on the defensive line. Maybe this has something to do. And did we get to it in the open there with Lawrence Guy's holdout? Because I think they're similar players. I don't think he's going to take all of Guy's snaps, but maybe just getting another guy of that skill set in the building. So that's on all that. Fluker, I can't believe I'm at the point where I'm actually sort of into this idea, but I am. Guy's been out of the league essentially for 2 years. I get that he got his body back in shape, and he looks great, and credit to him for putting all that work in. But
if you haven't, go look at those off-season workout videos. I forget. Just search like DJ Fluker on Twitter.
If you search DJ Fluker on it's also in my post on 98.5thesportshub.com. But I mean, the guy's in great shape, but he hasn't played in 2 years. Last time he played, he had to get moved inside to guard. How good is he really going to be? But at the same time, their tackle position kind of just feels like they're throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks. And if that's what they're going to do, well, you might as well get as many swings at it as you can, right? Why maybe I don't want to sound like a degenerate gambler, but why stop here? If you're placing all these bets, why not place another one? And Fluker can play some guard too, some right guard too. So that helps, Michael Onwenu's coming back from the ankle injury, and we've talked about this at length, if they want to maybe play him at tackle. I can't imagine he's going to cost much. He's already had meetings with other teams. I know he met with the Eagles, so it's not like they're banging down the door to get him. But why not bring him in? Where's the harm in that? What could possibly happen? So I don't know how the workout went. Certainly seems like he left without a contract, because the report was the workout was this morning. Bill Belichick was kind of just like, yeah, we work out over 100 players a year. He wasn't getting that into it, but sure. Why not? I don't love where their tackles are at right now. I don't think DJ Fluker fixes that, but why not get a look and see? Maybe he can help you out, because they are going to need help there at some point.
And he was a Bama guy, first overall.
Bama guy, yeah.
First round pick too, right? So he's
11th overall pick by the Chargers in 2013. Was mostly a starter at right tackle until his last year in Pittsburgh. In 2020, he moved to right guard. In 2021, he was on a couple practice squads. He never played an NFL game, and then last year was out of the league entirely. I think really dealing with that weight issue. Alabama guy, he worked out at the Alabama Pro Day after that was kind of where this whole story began, was they let him work out at the Alabama Pro Day, even though he's 32, because he's trying to get back in the league. But yeah, I mean, you might as well see what you have in him. I don't think he's that different from like a 34-year-old Riley Reif, who struggled at times last year, Calvin Anderson, who's never really started consistently in the NFL. Might as well take a look. I don't know that he's going to be the answer, but I want as many shots at this thing as they can get.
Yeah, and that tackle position kind of feels like we might start to have a little worry there, and so we'll get to Trent Brown, but Brandon Fluker and just see what you have. Can't hurt at this point of the stage. One other note, James Robinson, you mentioned maybe it's an injury settlement. This is the time of the year where they do physicals, so maybe something popped up on a physical that led to that.
Yeah.
And he was limited. It's probably that Achilles is just killer for running back. So I'm guessing that's where that came from. But they have a lot of depth there still, and the contract didn't guarantee anything. So not a huge loss there. But the roster moves bring us to 88. So they have 2 open spots. Maybe Fluker takes one, but they also freed up a little bit of money cutting James Robinson. I think Miguel had it right over $1 million or $1.5 million, something in that range I saw.
Yeah, he only had 150,000 guaranteed, and Andrew Callahan said he might not have even hit all of that.
Yeah.
So
So they free up a roster spot. They free up a little bit of money. And we know someone's expected to visit, DeAndre Hopkins. He was on his Instagram story. He posted he was in Tennessee last night, I believe. He sent them the nice van, the tripped out van to pick him up from the airport and everything. So we don't know if he has left Tennessee yet, but Bill Belichick did confirm today that they are talking to him. They have been talking, as we've known, with him, but he wouldn't get into the logistics. He is not a travel agent, as he said. So we don't know when DeAndre Hopkins will be here, but he is in Tennessee right now, and the Patriots now have roster space for him.
the bigger issue for me, like, so Bill cited there being some. Ben Volen asked him the question, there's a report he's visiting on Tuesday. Is that true? And Bill kind of in a roundabout way, and he did use the word logistics at one point, but he said with the logistics, he doesn't know when he's visiting. He said they have talked to him, but he doesn't know when he's visiting. Is the logistical issue that he's already signed with the Titans and we just don't know yet? Is the logistical issue that he's suddenly decided he doesn't want to come visit here? Like, who knows? I'm not. They got to get him in the building, right? They've got to get him in the building before we start talking about this visit like it's a done thing. So we'll see what happens. But my opinion hasn't changed. They need number one wide receiver. He is a number one wide receiver. I think he'll be relatively affordable. They don't have to give up a draft pick. Go get him. Go pay him.
Yeah, get him in the building and don't let him leave.
Right.
And if you want to, transition this into today's minicamp, they kind of need some wide receivers because, and we'll start with minicamp. It's basically an extension of OTAs, no pads, no contact, all that stuff. So, but when we get out there, one of the first things we look at is who is not there because this is mandatory. That's one of the biggest difference from OTAs, which is optionals. And Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, who were reportedly dealing with injuries, not out there as we kind of expected. But maybe this, again, we need some receiver talent if these guys aren't going to be ready. So D-Hop.
Yeah, and it's two separate things. I don't know how much DeAndre Hopkins offsets Juju Smith-Schuster not being at minicamp. I would assume Juju's going to be ready for training camp. If he's not, that becomes another much bigger story because it is important that him and Mac Jones build chemistry. He should be, Juju, the most targeted pass catcher in the Patriots offense by a lot. So you want to make sure him and Mac Jones are on the same page. So yeah, I don't think there's a ton of overlap there, but it is a story that Juju and Mac haven't been on the field yet. I think you do want to see them together. And when you get to Thornton, and Mike Reese reported over the weekend, he's dealing with a soft tissue injury. Didn't say upper body or lower body, whatever, but just some sort of tissue thing. Like, this was one of the big questions coming into the season for Thornton. Can he be available and his size and all of that? And he's already banged up. So your number one receiver is going to come in behind schedule into camp. The guy you're counting on for breakout is already hurt. I've said this before. I don't mind the wide receiver group they have right now. It's fine, but the margin from going to fine to being a problem is very thin. You add a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, you feel much better about that group. So it's not that they can't overcome everything that's going on right now, but they have no choice but to overcome it, right? There's not a ton of wiggle room there. You bring in Hopkins, he's going to give you enough that, yeah, if it takes Juju a couple weeks to get going, I think that becomes a little bit easier to swallow. If Thornton doesn't have that massive breakout, right, that like 800-yard season, 500 to 800-yard season we're all talking about, it becomes a little bit more palatable if you have DeAndre Hopkins doing his thing at the X position. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's minor issues right now, but when you're just skating that razor-thin line, those minor issues can become major issues very quickly.
And Max said again after practice that Juju, they've worked with Juju. He seems around behind the scenes, getting into the offense. But, this is your big investment so far of the offseason. You would like to see him out there right now. And, with that knee injury that from the playoffs, it's unfortunate that he's not out there and he's not getting this work in. So, again, that thin line they're kind of walking, it's where they're at right now, to be honest.
Right.
And the big absences of the day, Trent Brown, who there were reports that his flight was delayed from Texas. Was it from Texas, I believe?
Texas, yep, North Texas.
Because of a hailstorm. So that's where Trent Brown apparently was. If you want to read into that more or not, guy who maybe not be happy with his contract or whatever, but he wasn't out there today, and they were rotating Reef, Calvin Anderson, Connor McDermott, those type of guys we've seen, but it doesn't look like a holdout for Trent Brown, which, people might have thought he should have been here in OTAs. He's not a lock for a roster with his cap hit. So, but he wasn't here. So, but maybe we'll see him. It sounds like we'll see him tomorrow or Wednesday at some point.
Yeah, hopefully, because I want to see what this offensive line looks like already. I want to see the picture, right? And we can't see it till Trent Brown's here. We saw a couple different permutations today. I think it was the first time we've seen Riley Reef at left tackle in team drills. It wasn't a lot, just very brief, a few snaps, but tackle is the biggest question mark for this team right now, in my mind. It's not receiver, it's not quarterback, it's not safety, it's tackle, offensive tackle, both of them, left and right. And it's hard to gauge just how much of a question mark it is without having the full picture. Is Trent Brown going to go in at left tackle for Calvin Anderson? Is he going to go in at right tackle for Riley Reef and Connor McDermott, who have been rotating there? Do they not know where he's going to be? And they're going to try him at both spots and see which combination of 5 works better. There's 3 different permutations there they could do. Maybe 4. Maybe he's on the right side and Riley Reef's on the left side. We don't know until we see it. And you want to know already. And I think to an extent they want to know because they want to start getting the communication down there on the offensive line. So it's good to know he's not holding out, right? There is one holdout, which is Lawrence Guys, which is weird. But it's good to know he's not holding out. But boy, like I can't wait to see him in practice. I want to know what this offensive line looks like already.
Do you think him missing today can hurt him in any way? Can Bill be like I know it's a delayed flight, but Bill might say you should have found a way. So
yeah, they got mad at Malcolm Butler a while back. His flight got canceled because of a tornado, and they were like, "Well, you should have been here."
Yeah.
And we all know the stories about the snowstorms, right? And so, no, I'm not saying it should, but it absolutely could hurt him. I think that what helps him is they're so desperate at the position, and the drop off from him to the next guy at either spot is so significant that maybe he catches a small fine or something. But if they're gonna allow this to take him out of the lineup, they're gonna be in big trouble.
Yeah, because we started talking how they might need DJ Fluker right now, so that's where they're at with the tackle position. But the one holdout, which we just noted, which was surprising, was Lawrence Guy, who 33 years old.
33 years old.
He's got 2 years left on his deal. He wasn't here for OTAs, and we just kind of figured, he doesn't need to be here. He's a veteran. He's a team captain. He's their community service guy. And then all of a sudden, Mike Reese says today that he's holding out for a contract dispute, and he's got 2 years left on his deal. I think his base is $2 million this year. He doesn't have any guaranteed money on next year, if I'm correct. So that's their one holdout, Lawrence Guy, and definitely a surprise.
So I will say, if they do move on from Lawrence Guy, they open up like 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, something like that, $1 million in salary cap. Guy last signed his extension 2021. It was a 4-year, $12 million deal. I say this completely guessing. There's no inside information here. There's none of that. This is just me guessing. Lawrence Guy's 33 years old. He's had a long, successful career. He doesn't have any guaranteed money this year. He had a down year last year. I wonder if he's looking at this and wondering whether or not he wants to play again and is considering retiring and sits there and says, well, I don't know if I want to play or not, but if I'm willing to walk away, I might as well see if I can get some more money right before I do that. Occasionally players do that. Now he's not really the kind of guy I think who would do that.
Yeah.
But I also didn't think he was the kind of guy that pulled out, period. So that's just a guess for whatever it's worth. But yeah, it's an odd situation. And the reality is they draft Keon White, who's a guy who can play a very similar role to the one that Lawrence Guy did. Like I was considering Lawrence Guy as a surprise cut when I was doing my roster projection before OTAs, before we knew he was absent at all. But I kind of figured, he's an important voice in that locker room. He's a trusted leader. He does a lot in the community. They're going to find a way to keep him. If he's not going to be here, I just don't see. I don't think he has a ton of leverage here in this lockout, unless they're in this holdout, unless there's something we don't know going on behind the scenes, right? I don't see where his leverage is. So I think either he comes back on his current deal for training camp or he's not here next year. I don't think he gets any more money from the Patriots.
And he's missed games 2 of the last 3 seasons, right? Like he hasn't been a healthy. I mean, he's been there most of the time, but there has been some injuries that have cost him games. So it's not like he's one of these key guys at 33 years old anymore. So maybe he is just looking for a little sprinkle on top, but it's definitely a weird position, especially in a kind of loaded defensive front core now that you got Keon White in there too.
Yeah.
So is that all it from roster moves, absences? There were, like Kayshon Boutte was absent. He missed the last OTAs.
He's probably dealing with an injury. He's a guy that could be headed right to a
Foxborough flu.
A red shirt. I thought it was interesting. Bryce Behringer comes out with the dark
visor
face shield, right? And then I guess so you were in there. He told reporters that he's dealing with something that he's working on with the medical staff.
So he was asked if it was a prescription visor because he usually wears the spec glass goggles.
Right, you can say rec specs. That's fine. You can say rec specs on the show.
The word slipped. I forgot it. But he wasn't wearing that, and it looked like he almost got like poked in the eye too, and he missed the last 2 OTA practices. So he hinted that the visor was something that came from talking with doctors, talking with coaches, and he said it wasn't going to be permanent. And he didn't punt today. It was all Corliss Waitman, so it looked like he might have been dealing with an injury there.
I wonder if you say that with the visors and talking to doctors. Sometimes if guys get poked in the eye, if they have an eye issue, they'll add a visor. I go back to years ago, Brad Johnson when he was with the Bucs getting poked in the eye in a playoff game. This is when visors were not popular at all. He was like one of the first quarterbacks to like wear like the clear visor. I know Jim McMahon did the shaded one, but like it looked really. But that was the thing. He got poked in the eye. He needed the protection. I wonder if it was something like that, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to be swaggy. Give me the tinted one instead of the clear one, right? But it's going to be interesting to see because, like you said, it was all Waitman today, and that's obviously competition. And will Behringer get back to punting, or is he another guy that could be a Foxborough flu guy?
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say, Waitman, just from the start of OTAs to now, Waitman looks much better. He was all over the place in the first OTA, and he was super consistent today. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, he's been. We talked about him a lot last show, but he was impressive again today. And the spin on the ball, he's a lefty, so the spin is it's challenging for those punt returners. They have some issues with it. So
what I would say, the reason the Patriots don't exclusively sign lefty punters anymore is these guys have become so advanced.
They're so good at it, yeah.
Well, the specific reason with the lefties, like the ball spins on the opposite axis, there are now guys who are righty punters who can get the ball to spin as if they're a lefty. Mm-hmm. So if you get a guy who can do that, you don't need necessarily a lefty punter.
But he can do it. So we'll see there. Because as we said, Behringer, 6th-round pick, easier to move on from if that's where the competition goes. But maybe he's Foxborough flu with Boutte there. And I think that was kind of it for absences. Quandre Mosley was out again, but he missed the last OTAs, so we'll see there. But everyone else who was out seemingly got let go. So,
I will say before we move on, I do want to remind everybody that this podcast is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals, winding down, 3-1 series. if you feel like maybe one of these teams is going to nudge its way back into it, head over to FanDuel right now. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. So what that means is you place your bet up to $1,000 if it's your first bet. And if you lose, they just put $1,000 back in your account. It's like it never happened. They forget it. You get those $1,000 to go and bet again. And there's games every night, so you certainly can use it. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Brian, where were we?
All right, well, before we get into minicamp, there was a little DeAndre Hopkins news while you read that from Jordan Schultz. DeAndre Hopkins had a successful visit with the Titans, and both sides will remain in contact. He's expected to visit the Patriots, and there's a chance he may schedule more visits as well. So it sounds like he left Tennessee without a deal, and he is coming to Foxborough. So they might have their chance here to not let him leave without a contract.
That is all agents speak for. He didn't get the money he wanted from the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
So he went out, and the Titans didn't give him what he wanted. And they said, all right, well, think about our offer. We'll be in touch. And now his agent's saying, oh, no, he's not going to diss the Titans. It's a good visit, but he's going to move on. He's good. It's not just the Patriots. He might take other offers. Like, you want him to consider your offer. He has a lot to consider. Keep that in mind. So I would call that certainly an encouraging development for the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we get the same report after he visits with the Patriots, that's not great. So I'm trying to find this right now. There it is. Evan actually just texted it to me. Oh, and he released it as like a statement to. Oh no, that's just Jordan Schultz doing a graphic. It didn't give a date for the visit with the Patriots. No. Okay, that was the one thing I was going to ask. Okay, yeah. Again, I would call that for the Patriots. I'd call that a good sign.
And he could come here now with that Titans offer, like, as maybe, I don't want to say baseline, because he obviously would have accepted it.
It says match. You have to match at least this. Yeah.
He says go above this, and if it's good enough for him to not take visits with other teams, then he doesn't leave the building, and that's exactly what you want for the Patriots.
Yeah, so I'd call that a good sign. Now I want to know when this meeting is.
Yeah.
Because that's the big question. And also because I have a whole golf day on Saturday, and I am so ready for them to sign him as I step into the first tee box. Ready for that.
Right when you tee off, you'll get the Adam Schefter breaking news.
Yeah, just in the backswing, I hear the little notification. What was that?
Someone just said in the chat, it's Tom Pelissero said Thursday. I don't know if
I'll check that.
I haven't seen that, but we can transition into what took place on the field today with the wide receivers short again, with no Juju, no Tyquan. It was the tight end show again. It was Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry, a lot of 12 personnel, and these guys just get peppered with targets when Mac Jones is under center. I tracked one 11-on-11 period just because I wanted to see, and they ran 7 plays and they got 4 targets. So they're getting a good chunk of these plays and targets pretty consistently every time we're out there watching them. And whether this is just, a fallout from the missing receivers, or whether they're really going to, lean on this 12 personnel this year, it looks like that duo is going to be busy.
Sorry, I was looking up the Pelissero thing. Who were you talking about?
Did you find anything?
No, I'm not sure where that came from.
All right, so scratch that. But yeah, I just said Gesicki and Hunter Henry still just going strong together on the field a ton.
Yeah, I do think those guys are going to be a big part of what they do. And it goes back to sort of what we saw in OTAs. It's not just that the two of them are out there together, but the ways they're using Gesicki. I mean, they're not using him like a traditional tight end, which is what we expected. But and I'll just add to that. Another guy that was really involved today was Ty Montgomery.
Yep.
And Montgomery,
from receiver too.
Yeah, so he played, split his reps at running back and receiver, which is what we've seen now in a few practices. And I think you're kind of creating a situation here where if you go into the huddle, I mean, let's just call it Parker. We're not going to get ahead of ourselves on Hopkins. Parker, Bourne or Thornton, and Schuster, your 3 wide receivers, right? And then, no, it can't be. Sorry, it can't be that. Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry, Ty Montgomery. Let's say you come out with those 5 in the huddle. Are you in 11? Are you in 10? No. Are you in 01? Are you in 12? Right? Like, you can do all these. We're like, put Mike Gesicki in back, put Ty Montgomery in the backfield. You motion him out. If they're in man, who follows him? Is it a running back? Is it a? Well, I'm so tired. It's a long day out in the sun. Is it a linebacker? Is it a corner that you can see? I got all burnt. Is it a linebacker? Is it a corner that follows him out to the boundary? Right. You could do the same things with Gesicki, shift him. How does that impact the linebackers, the safeties? Like I don't want to say positionless offense because that's probably going a step too far. But we heard Bill talk about it, and there's quotes, and I wrote about this back when they signed Gesicki on 98.5sportshub.com. Bill talked about when you played the Dolphins and he was on the field.
He's a big receiver.
You were kind of guessing in terms of how to match that with personnel. Now you can do that with Ty Montgomery as a hybrid receiver running back. They're setting up to get real creative, real tricky on offense, and I like it.
And it's like the Bill O'Brien philosophy. Get these guys and find your mismatch and pick your mismatch apart. And that's kind of what they've been doing. And another Bill O'Brien thing, attacking the middle of the field. And that's where the offense has kind of been centered on and focused on. And if they can have all these, whether you want to 01 or 11 or 12 or whatever it is, and defenses don't know how to match that, there's going to be a mismatch somewhere on the field that they should be able to exploit.
Right. And again, and like you said, that's what the O'Brien offense is. Right. That's what you get. That's what the O'Brien offense is. It's get to the line because you can't, no matter how good a defense is, 2000 Ravens, 2002 Bucks, 04 Patriots. No matter how good a defense is, you can't cover everything. Get to the line, figure out what the defense is designed to stop. You're going to have something called to beat everything. Check to that call and go. And the way they're structuring it, exactly like you just said, it's going to allow them some more freedom to do that.
And another part of O'Brien's offense is a lot of tempo. And I don't know if you've noticed, but it feels like once or twice every practice, they'll get to the line and Mac Jones's cadence will draw someone off sides.
Yeah, he's done a really good job of that.
You got Carl Davis today on a lap, false start. And that's just something, like every single practice we're seeing that. And that's, if they're running this tempo, that's something that, could be noteworthy here as we get into games. You see like Rodgers do it all the time.
Yeah. Definitely agree.
Mm-hmm. So, the offense, wasn't that competitive today on the field. It was up and down. They had some good moments. It was a funky 2-minute drill at the end where the offense was going at a walkthrough pace and the defense kind of dialed it up and picked Mac Jones off 2 times and he was yelling at him. But, just again, non-padded, no contact. They had a few good plays early. And Mac talked about this too. The defense, which we'll get to, is so good and they are familiar with each other and they can scheme a lot of stuff up. He was talking about, Steve Belichick is sitting in there drawing up plays that look like other things. And they threw a few blitzes at him today and they had some good answers. They hit Parker on a quick one and they had a nice design play to Kendrick Bourne across the middle, which would have been a touchdown. So again, we want to see it in a live pocket, but Mac was bad last year against pressure. And if O'Brien can help him get some of those answers, even pre-snap, like that play to Bourne today, that could be a good move going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So any other offensive details?
So we're going through it at right guard now, right? Michael Wynn, who hasn't been practicing, it was Antonio Mafi. He actually looked good. And then he comes out. He's in a red non-contact jersey today for the first time this spring. So you saw Jake Andrews, Bill Murray there. Bill Murray might have an outside shot to make this team. I still have him off, but we know they like him. They've kept him around. He's going to be on the practice squad.
Yeah.
But they're giving him like real reps. They're really giving him a shot to kind of eke out a spot here.
Mm-hmm. He's been first up pretty consistently at that right guard spot. And obviously, Onwenu will come back and take over. But they're giving him these reps right now. So they obviously like him. And the only other offensive note I had is Henry and Gesicki get a lot of the attention, rightfully so, but I thought that kind of third, if they're going to keep a third tight end, that kind of picked up today. Anthony Ferkser had a nice back shoulder catch in the end zone. Scotty Washington had a nice catch up the seam. Johnny Lumpkin's involved. So they've kept two on the active roster, I think the last 2 years, and then a handful on the practice squad. But maybe one of these guys, takes over and creates a spot for themselves on the 53.
I still think, and look, there's a long way to go. Maybe one of them has a breakout preseason, but I still think they get all of them to the practice squad and they just elevate them rotationally as needed.
Just
I
as
think
they've been
that's
doing.
right. I think that's ultimately what it's going to look like. But who knows? Maybe one of them does ball out. And I liked what I've seen with, like, Lumpkin was the guy I wanted to watch because he gives them something they don't have otherwise. He gives them that big imposing presence as a blocker that Ferkser doesn't have and Sokol doesn't have. And Scotty Washington's big, but he's not as polished as a blocker. But it's not that Lumpkin's not a good receiver. He never did it at Louisiana. Like, 16 catches was his career high last year. So there's really, like, you can't get tape on him as a receiver. We're really going in this blind. So I've liked what I've seen from him as a receiver. That's not to say he's going to come out here and catch 50 balls this season, but is he far enough along for that role? Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah. Just like who's the tight end? Like Dwayne Allen? Am I thinking about that? Like a Dwayne Allen role? Or
that one was weird. The Dwayne Allen role, but Dwayne Allen was like a good pass catching tight end. They just never threw to him.
Yeah, when he came in, like, he was a pass catcher almost. Well, not like he's still a good blocker, but they just never let him run routes, basically.
Right. No, the player I always compare him to, do you remember Mike Williams, who was a tackle in college?
Oh, yep.
Yeah, from Alabama, and they got him from Detroit. Like, that's the guy I think
He just
Johnny Lumpkin is.
Yeah. All right, well, that's all I had offensively. Do you wanna jump to defense? Or
Yeah, let's do it.
So, today was basically their first time that we've seen they've had their full secondary out there, because there's always been at least one guy missing or limited. So they had them all today, and they used all of them today. They were mixing and matching as we kind of expected them to. It was Christian Gonzalez, that top guy, but opposite of him and behind him at safety, they were really, really rotating those guys a lot.
What I really liked was, and not just that. All right, so let me start here. We talk a lot this time of year about presumed starters and presumed backups, right? And you guys all know what we mean. You couldn't really do that with the defense today, because there were even times, I mean, the whole defense, like, because and sometimes you go, all right, well, it's, first team offense, first team defense, you match it, but you have Matthew Judon out there with Joshua Bledsoe at safety, right? Coming on for that second, you know what I mean? So they really were mixing and matching everything. There was no first team, second team. Everybody was kind of playing with everybody. But the one thing I really liked, and I hope this is here to stay, is in a number of different permutations, they had Christian Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones, and Marcus Jones all on the field at the same time. Now, some of that was with Jonathan Jones in the slot. Some of it was with Jonathan Jones playing safety. Some of it, I think there were a couple snaps where Marcus Jones played safety. Like, and really, it's Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones, Christian Gonzalez. Those are your three best corners. Three your best defensive backs. Figure out a way to get those three guys on the field at all times. And the thing is, even if that is taking Jonathan Jones out of the corner position, when you play him at deep safety, that's mostly been Kyle Duggar and Adrian Phillips, not exclusively, but I would say they've gotten the majority of the snaps back there to this point. You get to put those guys back in the box where they're at their best. So I love the idea of getting those three guys on the field together. And you can do it all different ways. Do it all the different ways. Throw every alignment at them. George Bilecki from Nesson, I was talking to him today during practice, and he called it the UFO defense because you have no idea what you're looking at. You can't even tell what shape it is. And, one snap, this guy's the boundary corner, and then the next snap, he's the box safety, and then he's the slot corner, and then he's the free safety. And then, so, like, they need to take advantage of that as much as possible. And I thought today was maybe the first step in starting to do that.
it is confusing to watch, whether it's like, first off, you don't know if it's first or second team because it's like Kyle Duggar's on this field and Christian Gonzalez is on the other field. Like, you don't know. And then that rotation, you don't know where these guys are lining up. They even had Christian Gonzalez in the slot, I think, for a few times today. And
Yeah.
it's just, and they're familiar with each other. That's something, like, because you brought everyone back, you brought this coaching staff back. They're really going to be able to scheme things up. And a Bill Belichick defense is always a complex scheme, but they're really going to be able to run some, spin the dial a lot if the communication on the back end is set without
Right.
Devin McCourty. That seems like the big if. And maybe that is John Jones because he's been here so long, but that seems like really the only thing that could slow them down at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And Marte Mapo was safety again today. And we're just gonna keep saying it because he keeps standing out, but he's just continues to be impressive. It's still non-contact, red jersey, but he's just impressive all over the field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record at this point, but
he
he is
just
so
keeps doing
good. And it's that same thing. Like, I need to see with contact now. I need to see him do it when these guys are hitting and there's full pads on. But if he's doing that, they've really got something here.
Mm-hmm. And Judon was back, right? He's maybe a guy. His production, maybe you could argue he was underpaid, and he's been the big standout from that high spending class, but he was out there today, so that looks, doesn't look like any issues on that from a contract or a holdout perspective. So good to see him back on the defensive line.
Yeah, I saw some people wondering about his absence. Like,
he does that, like,
kind of just do that. Yeah, it's fine. So I wasn't too worried about that.
Yeah, has he been to like an OTA since he signed?
I was trying to find it. I was trying to find that yesterday. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he hasn't. Like, I had this vague memory of him being at 1 in 21, but I'm pretty sure it was a mini camp that I'm thinking
signed.
of. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. That wasn't much concern, but you could make an argument he's underpaid, but he was here, so no issue there. But the secondary seemed like the big story of the day defensively.
Yeah,
So
I would say the secondary and just the attendance as a whole with Trent Brown and Lawrence Guy and the receivers.
So did you have anything else on that side of the ball?
No.
And then special teams, we touched on the whole Behringer situation. Waitman was performing well, and I mentioned this the other day, but Jordan Heelig.
Yes, I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, he is like only working directly with Matthew Slater and Cam Achord off to the side throughout the entire practice. And that is something we have seen from Brendan Schooler, from DeMarcus Mitchell, from Christian Wilkerson, who are guys who made the team. So maybe Jordan Heelig, UDFA, just put a pin in that one for now.
I'm with you on that. And it's kind of that thing where we can't find anybody else who's going to extend this UDFA streak. Like Malik Cunningham, we thought maybe, but that new quarterback rule doesn't help him a ton, especially since they've more or less designated him, like done everything but designate him as a wide receiver at this point. Johnny Lumpkin, I just said, it feels like they're going to maybe rotate guys off the practice squad. Ed Lee and Justice Tavai, I don't think are quite there yet. Although Ed Lee's made some impressive plays here, but he's not going to make. They have so many wide receivers. He's not going to make the roster.
He's a practice squad guy.
And Jordan Heelig he's always been a special teamer. Like, he grew up in this. This is not a guy that you're converting to special teams that has to learn it. Like last year, Brendan Schooler played wide receiver and safety, and he did some special teams things too, but he wasn't as immersed in it. DeMarcus Mitchell was a pass rusher. He did play a little bit on special teams, but he wasn't as immersed in it. Jordan Heelig played 40 snaps defensively in 3 years at Appalachian State. He was a pure special teamer. I have to think that they like that.
Yeah, and they're remodeling that whole unit kind of, so there's probably there could be a spot for him, and the fact that he's in that role with Slater, with Cam Achord, that's a good start at this point of the offseason.
Yeah.
And then Nick Folk was there. Chad Ryland was there. I think they only did one kicking thing at
Yeah.
the skinny goalposts. I think they would have made all of them, I believe.
They missed a bunch that like they wouldn't have missed on a regular
At
goalpost.
like
So that
Jeff
was
Smith, but
yeah.
Folk was up first. I don't know if you read into that at all, but
We got to get to the preseason for that.
yeah,
We got to get to the preseason to see
you
that.
got to see that in live action and
Yeah.
how it goes. But
All right.
that was pretty much it from breaking down offense, defense, special teams. Any other thing that jumped out to you?
No, but I do want to work a Boston Sports Minute in here real quick.
Okay. What you got?
Because as everybody I think is blatantly aware, I'm pretty out on the Red Sox at this point. I'm frustrated with them. They are annoying the crap out of me, et cetera, et cetera. But they swept the Yankees last night. Or not swept the Yankees. They beat the Yankees in a series last night. They beat them in extra innings to take the series 2-1. Say what you will about the Red Sox. They've had some low points this year. They haven't had a lose a series to the Red Sox low point. So anytime the Red Sox beat the Yankees like that, I'm going to take my victory lap. I certainly hope this is kind of I don't want to say I hope this is the high point, but I hope this doesn't become false hope. I don't need them to have a deadline like they did last year where they go all in on fool's gold and they invest when they don't need to invest and things like that, right? Congratulations, you beat the Yankees. It's cute. It's nice. They should still be looking to sell at the deadline. They shouldn't be rushing Trevor Story back. They should not be thinking about calling Marcelo Mayer up this year and burning a year of team control on him for this team. Hopefully some morale boost for them and for Alex Cora, because I don't want to see him leave, but it certainly seems like he's trying to shoot his way out of town, which, by the way, I don't blame him for doing. Alex Cora is kind of the Red Sox what Mac Jones was to the Patriots last year. Yeah, he's probably not handling this situation great. I'm not really sure what I want him to do any more than what he's doing, because what he's being given, it's never going to work. There is no way regardless of how talented he is, nobody is talented enough at what he's being asked to do to make this situation work. So, but they beat the Yankees in a series, so that's fun.
And you got to build off. You have the Rockies coming in now. So if you want to
don't build off it. Don't build off it, because you have because I've seen this movie before. They're gonna build off it against
a bunch of the deadline.
A bunch of crap teams. They're gonna buy at the deadline. Chaim Bloom's gonna make a bunch of stupid mistakes, and then the back half of the year when they have all those divisional games, they get their asses whooped and they're gonna finish 6 games out of a playoff spot. No, I've seen that movie. Don't build on it, because it's not real. It's not gonna be real. It's the Celtics' potential comeback against the Heat was way more real than anything the Red Sox are going to do this year.
You're not going all in until Chris Sale comes back in August? Put you over
the hump? We're counting on Chris Sale now? We're counting on Chris Sale again? Excellent, because that went so well the last 5 times they tried to freaking do that. There's another one. Yeah, we haven't done a show since Chris Sale went on the IL.
We did it last time.
Did we?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
You got your rant off last
It's
time.
hard to keep track of because he goes on the IL so freaking off it. No, you know what it was? We did a show when he went on the IL. We haven't done a show since they moved him on to the 60 day. And we found out that this was like a legit injury, because at the time we didn't know what it was. Put him in the bullpen when he comes back. He can't start. He doesn't have the durability for it. Stop trying to make this thing happen. They should use him like the Indians, the Guardians, whatever. They were the Indians at the time. Used Andrew Miller. 2 to 3 innings every 3 days. That should be Chris Sale's role. He can't start. He can't throw 6 or 7 innings every 5 days. He can't throw 200 innings in a season. He doesn't have the durability for it. You might, and I get, people will say, well, you're paying him all that money. That's way too much money to pay a reliever. It is too much money to pay a reliever. But you know what else it is? It's way too much money to pay somebody who doesn't freaking play for you. You got to figure out a way to get him on the mound, period. And that's putting him in the bullpen.
And you think for a team that loves all these pitchers who pitch like 2 or 3 innings, they would just bite the bullet and do that already.
Yeah, that makes too much sense. They can't do that. It's too easy. No, you gotta have the nerds come up with some new thing to revolutionize the game. I was talking to some friends over the weekend and we were kind of just joking around about this. Like, what's next with the nerds? Take your worst hitter, put him lead off, and then after the first at bat of the game, you have him out of the way. You don't have to deal with him again for like 3 innings. I'm not endorsing that. It makes no sense, but it makes as much sense as some of the other crap the Red Sox try to do. So,
yeah, interesting.
That's a very polite way to put it. All right, there's your. Oh, actually, hang on. We can fit a quick college football minute in here too. James Franklin was at Patriots practice today. Head coach of Penn State.
Yeah, he was.
Bill Belichick.
And his defensive coordinator, I believe.
I might have missed that. I just saw James Franklin.
He was with some staffers. I thought someone said it was his defensive coordinator, but yeah, James Franklin.
Sometimes they bring staffers, head coaches bring staffers to observe. Bill Belichick hasn't drafted a Penn State player since 2009. It was Rich Ohrnberger in the 4th round, 5th round, offensive guard. It's the only Penn State player Bill Belichick has ever drafted. Maybe building a relationship, because I'll tell you this, Brian. Tackle is going to be the biggest need for the Patriots next year in the draft, more likely than not, right? I think we all agree on that.
Top tackle, or the projected top tackle.
What? So some people still have Joe Alt from Notre Dame, but yeah, consensus 1st round top 15 tackle. And I'm going to guess on this. I'll have it by the end of the season. I promise you. Olumuyiwa Fashanu was supposed to be a 1st round pick in the draft this past year. Everybody was shocked that he went back to school. So maybe Bill getting ahead of things there. But there's the college.
And they have Gesicki and McSorley on the roster who played under Franklin. And I just looked it up. It was DC Manny Diaz and Andrew Callahan had this. It was DC Manny Diaz and Frank Leonard, who was a Penn State analyst and a ex-Patriot scout. So yeah, maybe.
Is that like University of Miami head coach Manny Diaz? Remember when he was supposed to save the U?
That sounds familiar, but I don't. He just said defensive coordinator Manny Diaz. So I mean, it probably is.
Yeah,
it is.
So Manny Diaz was the coach before. Who did they just replace him with? He was in between Mark Richt and
I forget the new guy's name.
The guy now who I like, who came from Oregon. This is gonna bug it. Mario Cristobal.
That's it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Who I do like. Manny Diaz. I was never that big on. Manny Diaz, very, very notable place in football history. Do you know what? We were talking about revolutionizing the game. Do you know what he added to the game of football? Pretty much just at the college level. I don't think this exists in the NFL, but you know what his big innovation was in the game of football?
I don't
Manny Diaz.
So
he was the head coach at Miami when they instituted the turnover chain.
Oh, that Paul killed.
Yeah, exactly. You were trying to think of like some sort of defensive alignment or something.
I thought it was going to be something much more advanced.
No, you're new to the show. You'll get it. It's always going to be some nonsense when I do something like that.
I like that.
Turnover chain.
Like that more.
Okay. Turnover chain. So there you go. All right. There's college football minute for you.
All right. So that'll do it for this edition of the Patriots Beat podcast. The Patriots will be back for day 2 of mandatory minicamp tomorrow. We will have a show for you sometime tomorrow, so put your Patriots Press Pass notifications on to know when we go live. Until then, you can follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Read his recap from today at 985thesportshub.com. You can follow me on Twitter at IamBrianHines. Read my recap from today at patspulpit.com. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you guys tomorrow.